Welcome, and we will start, of course, with our bracha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah.
Amen.
And we'll go to the screen share. Here we are. So we have now talked just very quickly, of course. Isaac had thought to go to Egypt because of the famine. God has told him not to do that. And so we have him winding up in Gerar, which is a Philistine territory. And that's what we're reading about. So we did, in fact, read this verse yesterday, but we'll go over it one more time. Vayish'alu anshe hamakom le'ishto. The men of the place inquired regarding his wife. Vayomer achotihi, and he said, she is my sister, ki yarei lemor ishti, because he was afraid to say, my wife. Pen yaharguni anshe hamakom. The Torah is sort of using the way it says yaharguni, they will kill me, right? In other words, he was saying to himself, lest the people of the place kill me, al Rivka, regarding Rivka, ki tovat ma'ehi, because she is beautiful. These are Isaac's words to himself. That's sort of something lovely that he's saying about his wife, how lovely she looks, right? How beautiful she is. The feeling that he had about her. And we know he loved her. It does say that explicitly. Just another sort of comment that fear is a great reason why people lie. That fear is perhaps, maybe I'd be just going out on a limb, that perhaps one of the greatest reasons why people lie has to do with fear. But I think there are other reasons why people will lie. They'll lie to trick people. But it's interesting that that's what happened here. And of course, it's not a total falsehood. It's bending the truth.
And also a falsehood in the name of, protecting yourself or someone else.
Correct.
It should be legitimate, because there are legitimate times your life could be in danger if you told the truth.
Yes, it is true. Lying is maybe we could call it an art in its best sense if it is done for very good reasons.
Artfully.
Yeah, yes. And not to trick people, not to
play games with them, but just
or to hurt
give
them,
a life.
right, and not to hurt them,
Yeah, or to just like, oh, I love your new hat. That's so cute on you.
Yes.
Right.
Or, yeah, I mean, I actually love it. Forgive me for the sort of editorialization, but when the wife says to her husband, do you like my haircut? And he has to, the response is that a trick question? So.
That's sad.
Hey,
say
that's
yes.
my response. That's my response every time, though. Yeah, that is true. It is a trick question. But anyway, go.
No, you should just say yes.
That's the point.
No.
That's why it's a trick question. It's not a real question. Just that's the reason. That's the trick part of it.
It's fishing for a compliment,
Of
and
course,
when somebody
and that's-
fishes for a compliment, you should give it to them.
Absolutely, Lauren. I agree.
Yeah. All right, we get both sides of the story here. Okay, yeah, okay. That's fine. That's fine.
I agree. I agree, Lauren.
There's a side of being nice and a side of not being nice.
No, it's not being nice or not. It's a side of being a male or a female in a marriage. That's
nope.
There's a difference there too. But anyway, we'll take this for another day.
Let's keep
right.
moving. I was merely trying to be amusing, and
I know
I'm not trying to get into trouble here.
On it.
Yeah, okay.
No, you're not in trouble. David is.
Well, but he's my student, so if he's in trouble, I'm in trouble.
I better not be in trouble, okay? That's not fair to say I'm in trouble for trying to keep the peace, okay?
Yeah,
so anyway.
I'm telling your wife.
Okay, no, it's okay. Come on. Hey, guys, let's get this under control. Let's get it under control.
All right.
Okay, so we actually have finished with that verse. So we're going to go on to Chet here. Vahi, and it was so, ki archu lo sham yamim, when he had been there for a long time. So he now spent a lot of time in Gerar. Vayashkef Avimelech melech Plishtim, and Avimelech, king of the Philistines, looked out. He scoped out, right? Scoped out. Vayishkof, right? Or Mount Scopus, Har Hatzofim, right? But Ad HaChalom, through the window. He looked through the window. Vayar, and he saw, Vehine Yitzchak mitzachek. And behold, Isaac was sporting. He was sporting at Rivka, with Rivka, his wife. So that's clearly not the way you treat a sister. Okay. Somebody needs to mute, please. I'm hearing a lot of ambient sounds going on. Thank you. Please mute. Okay. Ki archu, for long, right? The days they were long. Amar. So this is so lovely. Rashi pulls this out, right? He thought, Me'ata ein li dog. It doesn't appear as if I have anything to worry about. Okay? Me'achar shelo ansu ha'ad, because they have not yet tried to violate her. Ad achshav, until now. Forgive me, there's another word there, right? Shelo ansu ad achshav. They haven't violated her up to now. Ve'lo nizhar liyot nishmar, and he wasn't careful to be guarded about his behavior there. So, public displays of affection, right? So he was clearly publicly displaying his affection, at least apparently without the curtains drawn. Vayeshkef Avimelech. Okay, so I am going to mute someone because I'm hearing somebody is not muted. Okay, thank you. It's okay, Harlan, I took care of it. Okay, I'm sorry. All right. So, Vayeshkef Avimelech et V'gomer. Avimelech saw, right, what they were doing. Feshera'uhu meshamesh mitato. So Rashi actually gets a lot more explicit about it. He saw he was consorting with his wife, right? Actually being, and quite explicitly here, right? He was having sex with her. That's what it's saying. He saw it. By the way, I can tell you that halachically, one is supposed to be extremely modest about that, about actually having sex with your wife. You're supposed to be extremely modest about it. So, just parts of the discipline. Part of it meaning without the lights on. So. Vayikra Avimelech liYitzchak, and Avimelech called to Isaac, Vayomer, and he said, Achine ishtechahi. Well, indeed, she's really your wife, but she's really your wife. Ve'ech amart achotihi. How is it that you said that she's my sister? Vayomer elav Yitzchak, Isaac said to him, Ki amarti pen amut aleh. Because I thought, Yitzchak says, because I thought I would die on her account. Okay, so dying is worse than telling a lie, I guess, right?
Rashi there.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Let's go on. Vayomer Avimelech. So Avimelech said, Ma zot asita lanu? What did you do to us? Why did you do this? Okay. Kimat shachav achad ha'am et ishtecha. One in the people, literally. Someone, you could translate it as someone. We'll see what Rashi says. Might have lain with your wife. Veheveta aleinu asham, and you would have brought guilt upon us. Now remember, Avimelech, I think we can assume that this is the same Avimelech that Abraham encountered and got into deep trouble because he actually, in that case, took Sarah, okay, and was then smitten with plagues. And so he's had his experience already. He doesn't want this kind of stuff to go on. Isaac, of course, was not born at the time, so he would not have known about this necessarily. So that's one reason why we could say that Avimelech says this. However, Rashi explains achad ha'am, right? One of the people, hameyuchad ba'am, one who is unique amongst the people, zeh hamelech, would be referring to himself, the king. So he's saying, I might have lain with her. Veheveta aleinu asham, and you would bring guilt upon us. Im shalchav kvar, had he already lain with her, heveta asham alenu, you would have in fact brought guilt upon us. And so this is, trying to actually get deeper on this is sort of interesting. I mean, I always feel that stories like this have a deeper message to share, but I don't have a real quick takeaway here. Vayitzav. So other than Vayitzav Avimelech et kol ha'am lemor. So Avimelech commanded the entire people, saying, Hanogea ba'ish hazeh uveishto, one who touches this man or his wife. By the way, notice how he says here explicitly that Rivka is Isaac's wife. Mot yumat, will be definitely put to death. So Avimelech is protecting him now and making it very clear this is not the way you behave. Now, I think, and as we're sort of looking at this carefully, and this is one of the reasons why doing this with you is just so valuable, is ask yourself the question, why would he have to make such a command? Why would he have to make such an edict?
He's afraid of the plague or something. Maybe he believes in God, the one God that Isaac believes in. I don't know.
Okay, so if Harlan, if I tell you not to mess up your room, what is the implication?
Okay, yeah, all right. I understand.
Right. And that's so it's interesting because in a way, the Torah is, I would say subtly, suggesting that Isaac's concerns were legitimate, right? That in fact, in this area, okay, in the land of the Philistines, this is the way people behaved. Okay, that he had valid reason for such concerns. And look to the extent that Avimelech has to go to say that it is a capital offense. It'll be a capital offense. He wouldn't have had to do this if he knew that the people basically acted morally. And so again, what the Torah is telling us here is that one of the reasons why the Israelites were allowed to go in and conquer these people had to do with the level of immorality that they practiced. And having said that God doesn't take sides, because if the Israelites were to practice the same way, you can imagine what would happen to them. Okay, so that's perhaps exploring that just a little bit more. Okay. Vayizra Yitzchak ba'aretz hahi, and Isaac sowed, S-E-W-E-D, right? Or is it no, S-O-W-E-D, right? Sowed ba'aretz hahi, in that land, vayimtza b'shana ha'i me'ah sha'arim, and he found.
Wait a minute. How can he sow when it's a play? When it's what do you call it? It's
yes,
dry. The whole land is dry.
Wonderful question. I may turn that question back to you. Let me finish the sentence, and then you can decide what the answer is, okay? And if you don't have the answer, I will give it to you. Right. That year, okay, so Isaac sowed in that land, vayimtza b'shana hahi, and in that year he found 100 times. Vayevachehu Hashem, and the Lord blessed him. By the way, this would be another verse that I would use to prove that the word bracha essentially means plenitude. It means lots of. So you answer your question, Harlan. What's the answer?
God was with him, so that's why.
I think we can get a little more. I think we can be a little more specific.
I don't know.
The famine ended. The famine had come to an end. That's it.
I thought the famine was in Israel anyway, and not in Philistia or Palestine or whatever.
Okay, so I think that had it not been in Philistia as well, he wouldn't have headed down to Egypt necessarily. Okay, and not only that, the fact that it says in that year, right? I think that phrase in that year, as opposed to other years, okay? So that would suggest that the famine was in fact in Philistia as well. It was simply on his way down to Egypt, but it was also the famine was in that whole area.
Yeah, you're right. Rashi will address that.
Okay. Once in a while, every 100 years, I'm entitled, right? So, Ba'aretz Hahi, Af al pi she'ena chashuva ke'eretz Yisrael, even though it's not as important as the land of Israel atzma, right? The land of Israel itself, ke'eretz shivat hagoyim. It is like the land of the 7 nations, which is, of course, the land of Canaan. Bashana Hahi, that year, Af al pi she'ena ketikna. Shahaya. Okay, so Rashi actually goes in the opposite direction, citing the Bereshit Rabbah. So Harlan, I have to confess, Rashi is going in the opposite direction, and he's saying even though it wasn't a regular year because it was still a year of famine. So in other words, the way the Bereshit Rabbah is pulling this out is to say it was an even greater miracle.
Yeah, that's what Harlan said, that it was God being with
Yeah.
him.
Right. So, yeah, and one of my questions there also was, doesn't that, I'm assuming because it was a famine, and probably very difficult to plant, that it just shows faith, Isaac's faith, right? The fact that he even did this meant that they had to have some sort of faith that, he would get something as a result of it, right? So yeah, go ahead.
Okay, or that he wasn't looking necessarily for a reward, that his greatness lay in the fact that even though, let's say from a sense point of view, from a common sense point of view, it made no sense for him to be staying there because there was famine. Nevertheless, God had told him what to do, so he did it.
Yeah,
and that was good enough. And that was good enough.
Yeah.
And in fact,
I didn't mean he was looking for a reward. I meant he had faith in God that,
Yes.
by staying there and sowing,
Right.
he would still be able to survive, right? Otherwise,
yes,
yes. So that seems to be an implication there because it just shows his faith or his strength of his faith. So anyway.
No, good. Yeah, I think that's a wonderful point. Thank you. Yes, right. And Rashi just goes on that it uses the ha-he reference, okay, twice, that it refers to it, right? Let's make sure, and let's take a look. Sorry, we're back here. Yep. Ba'aretz hahi, look at this, the repetition of the word hahi, that land, that year, right? Rashi wants us to focus on that, okay? Ba'aretz hahi, bashana here in that land and in that year, shnehem lama lomar. Why mention both of them? Sorry, or shnehem lama, putting the commas in the wrong place. Please forgive me. I'm displaying my ignorance. The two of them. Why? Lomar sha'aretz kasha, to say that the land was tough. V'hashana kasha, and the year was tough. The land, of course, the land had the drought, and the year was a year of drought. Me'asharim, literally it means 100 gates. But sha'ar is sometimes used to mean value, right? Something like that. Sometimes it refers to the market, right? And when it's referring to the market, it's talking about the price, the market price. So anyway, here we go. She'amduha, and because they calculated, that's what that means. Kama re'uya la'asot, how much was this land likely to produce? And by the way, that is how they valued or estimated the value of a land. It was less to do with the acreage and more to do with the kind of production that the land would create. So because there was such a difference between, you could have a lot of land that wouldn't produce very much, and you could have a little land that had very rich soil and would produce a lot. And quite honestly, what was it that you really were looking for? And I wonder also if in some ways it was to underscore an understanding that the land itself, you didn't own the land itself. The land itself was God's. What you really had was the use of the land. That's what you really had. And that's one reason why you might want to estimate it like that. At any rate, they figured out how much the land was likely to produce. V'asta al achat she'amduha, and regarding to the one part that they calculated it would make, me'ah 100 times. It produced 100 times what they estimated it was going to be able to produce. Verabtenu amru, okay, and our rabbis have taught us, omedze the ma'asarot haya, and this particular calculation was made for the sake of tithing. So knowing that it produced 100 times would, of course, mean that he'd have to give 10 parts to of that amount that it actually produced. So whether the rabbis mean more than that, I would have to check, for example, the Torah Tamima and see what it says there. Going.
How come the Philippines, the other people didn't produce a lot of? I mean, if it was a famine, I can't understand that. 100 times Isaac produced, and the others didn't produce nothing.
Well, they produced a lot less. By the way, so interesting, and I've actually experienced this. You know, the word ma'aser is spelled the same word as the word that refers to wealth. And the rabbis say, because tithing is a biblical commandment, it's a mitzvah to tithe. And they say, ta'aser lama'an ta'ashir, tithe in order that you may be wealthy. And you know something, it's so interesting. The Mormons are very meticulous about a few of the mitzvot that are in the Torah. And that's one of the mitzvot they're meticulous about, is that Mormons tithe. And I actually think it's so interesting that it's a little sort of faith act. And it could be, Harlan, that you're pulling out what the rabbis are really telling us. That the point that Rashi was making in citing the rabbis is that when he was making that calculation, he was doing it for the purpose of tithing. And of course, if there was famine in the land, he had every excuse not to tithe. But incidentally, they do also say that if you don't give charity when you're poor, you certainly won't give it when you're rich. And so it really has to do with developing a certain relationship to material things. And money is, of course, a great representative of that. So it could be that what the Torah is trying to teach us, in passing, is this relationship to material things and how it really is. It's a little window, in a way, you might say, to how God can bless us. And the idea that because Isaac was willing to tithe, even in a year of drought or a year of famine, God blessed him in this amazing way.
Well, did he sell everything to the other Philistines? I mean, did he sell his produce?
Well,
also?
I imagine, if he had more than enough, generally the point about farming is that you don't do it just to subsist. You do it so as to gain income. So you're going to see what happens, by the way. Remember, success guarantees one thing, Harlan. Great success guarantees jealousy.
Oh, yeah.
So let's keep. I think we took care of the Rashi. Yes, we're done with that. Okay, moving on to the Shlishi portion. Okay, you know something? It is 7:55. I want to start exactly at 8 o'clock this morning. So I'm going to put the bookmark in here. And we're going to add the bookmark here. And we're going to put in the marking. Let's see if this works. I don't know if it will, but I'm going to try. See if there's an arrow anywhere. I look to see. Maybe not. And I'll pop in an arrow, and we'll know where to start with God's help next year. So with the Shlishi, which is good place to start. And I'm going to stop the recording and thank those and wish you a Shabbat Shalom if you're watching it on Friday.